Hello everyone and welcome to the Hobby Guard. Today, for the first time ever, I'm gonna be playing and filming myself at the same time. This is not a stream. I am still learning how to stream, as I explained in the last video, in the last long form video. I've been wanting to get this project going for a good while, but I just have a lot to work on, and then I realized part of the things that I have to work on for this project, all that learning curve, could also be content and could be very at least potentially it has two uses. The first use is that I learned to do all these things, and the second use is that it offers behind the curtain look at the creative process and technical development of skills. Even though they're very basic skills, I feel like a 12-year-old nowadays would be born. Well, not a 12-year-old would be born, but you know what I mean. A 12-year-old, just nowadays, any 12-year-old would inherently know how to do any of this compared to this old geezer like myself. Regardless, today we're gonna be playing a game that is very special to me. So let me just hit it. Kind of a warning: you're gonna be listening to the soundtrack of the game in 3, 2, 1. All right, and this is part of the test. I want to see. Hopefully, the audio levels aren't too bad. Hopefully, you guys can hear me alright while still hearing the game. And so yeah, the reason I wanted to start with this game is I have a very personal, strong relationship to this series in particular. It's certainly one of the most impactful works of art that I've ever had the pleasure of I want to say participating on, because that's the beauty of video games. They have the potential to be works of art and you can participate in them, and I view all the art the same regardless of whether it's a play or a painting or a song. Like, you interact with it, and the song is something, but yeah, you also give something of yourself to whatever work of art, whatever the medium is. And I don't think video games, for the most part, I don't see them as any different from that. So this particular game has the amazing quality. Well, it has many great qualities. It's Dark Souls, by the way, in case and the title of the video didn't give it away. And I think it's so far arguably, if not at least, one of the best games ever made. And I think that when the humans of the future look back at history and the history of this medium of art that is video games, they're gonna look at Dark Souls the way we today look at any great work of art of the past. Something that was certainly a before and after in any medium, just in our creative expression and understanding as a species, right? And of course, those are a lot of words that mean a lot of different things for different people, but trying to be a bit more straightforward, I suppose, we all have a different story with Dark Souls. For some people, depending on how they approached this game is like a mirror. Depending on how you approach this game, it's sort of the experience, it tailors the experience that you will have. And just to give you an example, if you are like a meta gamer or like a maniac for hard games and you just want to test your motor skills with a controller in your hands, yeah, I don't play these games on keyboard. I've always played them on a controller. If you approach it just out of the mechanics, or like the stats system and just the mechanics in the game is very rich in that way, and it can offer a lot in that way if you approach it with an open mind. Because of course this type of game now is very popular, but back in the day, this was, I don't know if a first, but at least this wasn't as popular, and people just expected something different from the games of the era. Again, this is probably about I want to say maybe almost like 15 years ago now, which sounds crazy just saying it out loud. However, this game, if you approach it from the lore perspective, if you are into stories and lore in world building, in video games or in books or whatever it is, whatever medium you're attracted to or that you resonate with, this game has some of the deepest lore, and this series of games, some of the deepest, craziest lore, and it is presented in ways that are they leave it entirely up to you whether you want to go after the lore or not. Like, you actually have to work hard for it. People have made their entire YouTube careers have built on finding out the lore in this series of video games, which is something that I find amazing. I love it. If you approach it with a philosophical lens, looking through a philosophical lens, you'll find a lot of that there as well in this game. And the same thing for a spiritual lens. This game is very esoteric in many ways, and it's definitely not exoteric, but it's certainly esoteric, I would think. And it has many themes that have things to do with spirituality and religion, and the game itself, it's this kind of multi, how can I put this, it's like a choose your own adventure version of like a initiation ritual kind of thing. I don't know, of a Gnostic allegorical text or philosophical allegory. I don't know. It is very interesting how this game interacts with different people, and we all have a story with one of these games. Not all of us, but for some people it's like, oh, whoa, I really didn't expect it to be that hard, or I didn't expect the mechanics to be so complex. But for some of us it's something a lot deeper. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I was going through a very deep depression in my life when this game came across, and it changed my life forever, right? I've certainly had a very similar story. I may or may not have time to talk about it today. I may not even feel like talking about it. Again, this is the first time that I play and talk like this at the same time, so let's give it a shot. And again, if you're here, you're watching, thank you for your patience. Again, this is a work in process. You are just watching the process more than the work. But regardless, I hope that there's enough heart here in this project for you to at least be, if not entertained, at the very least interested for what might become of it in the future. That being said, I forgot to mention something important. What type of... two important things. First of all, I mentioned that I've played these games for a long time. However, I've never finished Dark Souls 1. I've always been terrified of playing too far into Dark Souls 1 because Dark Souls 1 was technically the second Dark Souls that I played. The first one was Dark Souls 2 because I didn't know any better. I should have played Dark Souls 1. I just didn't have a console at the time that it came out. But I did have a console by the time Dark Souls 2 came out. And I can go into the reasons of why I chose to play that one first in some other time. But the thing is, I finished Dark Souls 2 and I played it like 3 or 4 more times, like full runs of the campaign. And I jumped straight into the hype train for Dark Souls 3. And as part of that hype train, I started playing Dark Souls 1. Sorry, did I say Dark Souls 2 earlier? Dark Souls 1 earlier when I meant Dark Souls? Okay, so the first game that I played was Dark Souls 2. And then, while I was waiting for Dark Souls 3 to come out, I started playing Dark Souls 1, hoping to maybe finish it before I got to before Dark Souls 3 came out, because I was, of course, gonna play that day one. I literally stood in line, waiting to, as I explained in the previous video, waiting to get my special edition of this game, Dark Souls 3, that is. And before I could get halfway through Dark Souls 1, I think I was like a quarter of the way through, maybe, if not less, Dark Souls 3 came out. And I just stopped playing it, and I started playing Dark Souls 3, and I finished Dark Souls 3, and I had to play it another 4 or 5 times, obviously, because that's what you do with Dark Souls games, naturally. And they were like so impactful to me that I had many chances over the years, over many different consoles. I've lived in many different countries since then, so I've changed, like, my means of playing video games have changed. Sometimes a console, sometimes a PS4, sometimes an Xbox. And I've played it in all of those. Sometimes a PC, like this this one here. This is the first time I played this on PC though. And how can I put it? Like, the reason that I never finished this game. I don't know if you ever have read a book or a series of books, but this is something I've done in the past. And the very last few pages of the book I don't read. And I've done that more than once. And it's like, I already know that I love the book. I don't want to finish it because in my head that always leaves the hope that I still have something to do with it. The world is not over. It's the story has not been finished. Of course, I know the lore of Dark Souls as well as a scrub like me could understand it, because there's a lot way smarter people out there than me studying it deeply with a lot more discipline and commitment than I ever had. But I've watched hours of video on the lore of this, mainly back in the day, so I'm very rusty in a lot of it, which means it's the perfect time to jump straight back in. And regardless, I sort of know the lore of Dark Souls 1, because otherwise I wouldn't understand the lore of the rest of the games to whatever extent I do understand it. But that feeling of sorry for my weird noises, that feeling of like having chosen my own adventure through Dark Souls 1 was never fulfilled, which is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to finish this. I wanted to have the potential I wanted to have that to look forward in my life. Like, yeah, I still have something to scratch off my bucket list. So this is gonna be it, hopefully. And hopefully you'll be here for the journey or part of it. And that being said, since it's not the first time I played this game again, but it's the first time I'm gonna try to finish it, like for real this time. What type of game run I'm gonna have? What type of run I'm gonna make? Well, mechanically speaking, I won't metagame this. Usually, in my previous runs, I will usually do a different build. I don't believe I've ever started as a warrior here. I've done knight, I've done wanderer, obviously, I've done bandit, I think, and that's about it. I've never done sorcerer, never done pyromancer in Dark Souls 1, never done cleric, never done hunter. I think I've done hunter actually, never mind that. I did try a hunter build once, very hard. Never done any of those others, but regardless, in this type of game, this class that you start with is only relevant for the first few hours of the game and for the last few hours of the game, right? Because each class starts with a level and with some stats allotted to each level. So, sorry if you already know all of this, but there is like a level cap, a soft cap and a hard cap for how much benefit you get from keeping leveling on, as well as for they call it, like in Dark Souls 2 at least, like the soul memory, which was a matchmaking system. I don't know if that's applied to this game. I imagine it is, but it's basically your level. Depending on your level in PvP, they match you to people of similar level, and after a certain point, there's no point in leveling up further. So yes, which class you choose will matter eventually. But for me and for this playthrough, it's all gonna be about the lore. And I'm gonna do a lore playthrough. And I'm gonna play it mechanically in the hardest way for me. I usually either go full dex, dodging, just rolling everywhere, or full, where is he? The bandit. Full strength, big bonk, again, rolling everywhere where I have to, just hitting very hard. Or in between, a warrior, good old trusty warrior, sword and board. And I'm gonna try a parrying build this time, which is something I've never ever done. I've always sucked at that. And since I started playing Dark Souls 3 on my Xbox, so unfortunately I cannot record that recently, I started doing a parry build. And it's not even a parry build, like my stats are not towards parrying, it's just a parry playstyle. And the game is so much more interesting that way, so much harder too, but it also makes me feel like I'm playing it for the first time again, just because of how hard it is for me to actually get the damn parry. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna be a cleric. I've never been a cleric. I'm gonna do some focus later on in some miracles whenever I get the chance. But right now, at the first at the start of the game, I'm only gonna focus on my parrying mechanical skills. I don't want to cheese enemies. I want to face them head on and beat them mano a mano, hombre a hombre. And I'm gonna need to learn my parries because of that. But I don't want to use a wimpy, tiny parrying shield because I am a tank and spank cleric. So I forgot which stat it is here in this game. The one that helps you increase your equipment load before you start what we call fat rolling, which is just you just roll very slow. So it's gonna be hard for sure, but I'm gonna level that up so I have some beefy armor. And the last thing I'm gonna worry about is my damage. Okay, I'm gonna have very technical, slow fights, low damage, probably low health at the start because I'm gonna be focusing mainly on my equipment load and on getting cool weapons. I need to get the Morningstar as soon as possible because that is the best weapon. It's not. It's probably terrible. I don't know. I just like the idea of just fighting each enemy here like face to face with a Morningstar and a shield. It sounds kind of metal. And it being a cleric is also kind of cool, I guess, in an inverted kind of way, because I don't know if you know this, but religion in this game is a scam. It's totally upside down. It's very weird. I'm a Dark Souls conspiracy theorist, thanks to the channel. I think it's called Dark Souls Conspiracist or something like that. And that game truly made me a heretic. Damn, look at me, I'm jacked. Skipped leg day though, but that's just the way it's gotta be. That's another thing I've never done here, like a full barbarian build. I don't think, not at the start at least. Eventually I've built into that, but I'm talking too much. Let's start this gameplay. And we're gonna be again focusing on the lore, trying to figure things out as we go, taking our time, enjoying the gameplay, and hopefully we'll have some fun times. Now the only thing I'm missing here is a name. What shall we name ourselves here? How about let's see, what's a cool name? I want something that sounds like a dwarven name, like a dwarven cleric name. My favorite combination of class and species in D&D, or race, whatever they're called now. I guess it used to be called race, now it's species. Let me think real quick here. How about Hulbrick? Sounds strong, sounds powerful, rhymes with my name to an extent. And yeah, let's give this a shot. That's another thing I forgot to mention just before I start. What I really like about this game is it got so much more fun, like this type of game, including Elden Ring, by the way, not only Dark Souls, including Elden Ring and Bloodborne. Before I played them, I had never properly played D&D, Dungeons and Dragons style games, or RPG games, like in-person role-playing games, that's what I mean. After playing D&D and going back to these games, it's so much more fun because I understand the inspiration to an extent of the system, and the way I see it is this is just like fast D&D basically, at least in my head. Maybe autism, but that's what I'm thinking in my head. Like, oh, I'm running like my own dungeon master system here. So anyways, too much waffling, as the British say. Let's get this started. This will be a lore playthrough of Dark Souls 1. And where I can, I will comment on the lore. And where I can't, I'll shut up and just read it out loud for you to make your own choice. Sure, let's go. Nothing to lose here.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire, And with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of Chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone scales. The witches weaved great firestorms. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. And Seath the Scaleless betrayed his own, and the dragons were no more. Thus began the Age of Fire. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers. And man sees not light, but only endless nights.
This is so beautiful.
And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark side.
Wow. That's... Every time I play that, I cannot play it enough times. Like that intro, I mean.
Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the
Sorry about that. Just had to mute it for a sec there because I'm readjusting my screen here just to make it bigger.
to await the end of the world.
I didn't want to block the screen, but I just noticed how how bad it looks.
This is your fate.
Not my fate. Oh. I had never noticed like the little rats just running around like against the far corner of the wall. Who is that? That is not the character I created. I love that first feeling of whoa. See, so what just happened here is oh cool, I have none of my starting equipment. That's cool. So what just happened here is you had a Lord of the Rings style introduction, same levels of epicness, if a bit more confusing to be fair, than Tolkien. Um, and then you're like, yeah. So by the way, there's a prophecy that you're gonna rekindle the flame and save the world, and here you go. Oh, what's this? You're a carcass, a human carcass, an undead, almost a hollow, and you're trapped in an ugly ass cell, full like covered in rats, and you couldn't look any worse. I love that. That really puts you into perspective of like the type of journey this is gonna be. And if that wasn't clear enough, wait until you see me get destroyed by the tutorial enemies. Okay, so good night there tossed me a dungeon cell key. The reason I didn't want to interrupt too much the intro there, it's because it is very important. I kind of just want to start playing right away. So I'm gonna stop this video here, and then I'm gonna talk some more about the intro, and I'm gonna make another video because this one is for sure long enough, and we'll just make like short series of videos for now until I learn how to actually live stream my gameplays. How about that? So thanks for watching. Hope you stick around for the next one where we'll actually start kicking some butt. But yeah, okay. I'll just talk about the intro just a little bit before I leave. So basically, a lot of what the narrator says in the intro, just so you know, it's bogus. Like just so as we approach the rest of the game and we approach the narrative in different through different means. It's not necessarily that it is bogus. It's just like heavily biased because a lot of the it's basically the mythology of this game, right? It's as if a culture is telling you their story, like, oh yeah, I don't know, the gods came from the start and they gave us life, and they breathed life into a tree, and that was women, and they breathed life into a stone, and that created men. I'm sure that's a mythology somewhere. Look at all the rats on the floor. This is the first time, by the way, I'm playing the remastered version of this, and it is amazing. It looks incredible, at least compared to the first one. So anyways, you're just basically listening to the mythology. Although this game does have a lot of like allegorical ways of presenting its story. Its story is nonetheless very real, very heartfelt, and very human. And I hope that's not a spoiler. Regardless, it's also, as I said previously, very esoteric. A lot of people had drawn a comparison between the main story of Dark Souls and the Gnostic myth of creation. Sorry about that, voice crack. Some people, I think, have argued that it is very psychological. I think it's other people say it's just like philosophical allegory. I think it's just like you can't really unravel one from the other, right? Like everything's connected, bro. By the way, if my eyes are red, it's because I'm wearing contacts. I'm not used to wearing them for so long after work. I usually take them off, but I didn't want the gleam of the glasses. So if my eyes look red again, it's not that I've been reaping the cosmic magical pipe of wizardry. Rather, it's because of that. And that being said, everything that I'm gonna say next, it will sound like I'm high, but I swear I'm not. Okay, this is just my brain regularly operates, even if I am very tired from work. There is that. So anyways, just talking quickly about that first myth of creation of the intro, where they describe the flame and how everything came off it. I think one of my favorite interpretations is, and this might be my own to an extent, I'm sure people have mentioned it before, but I'm not like particularly thinking of like a well structured interpretation. It's just like something that I intuitively understand from this game, is that it's all connected. It's sort of telling the story of consciousness and how consciousness developed in the world, and it will make use of symbolism and archetypes and myths to tell that story. And part of those, to an extent, are real in game. Like, what do I mean by that? Like, the archetype of the great warrior king conqueror, like Gwynnis, or the chaotic, esoteric, beautiful, feminine witch, or the like the witch of Physalit, I think she's called, or the obviously Gwyn being the opposite masculine symbolism, and Nito, the first of the dead. Like, for me, that is, as to say, the first time that humanity gained understanding of its own mortality, and that's like the deepness of level of that I attribute to the creation myth in this game. I think it's something very, if not very well thought, at least extremely intuitive and sensitive towards the reality of our own creation myths, like in real life, of like established cultures and different religions. It's just how humans came to understand the world, and sometimes concepts in our heads, we name them as deities, and that didn't necessarily mean that these deities weren't real. Some people would argue the fact that we're able to conceptualize them as representatives of an entire aspects of our life and how we experience life. For example, our understanding of death as the god of death, or the first of the death in this case. I think that opposite to meaning that these deities aren't real, I think it makes them very real. But sure, it's kind of relative, right? But anyways, we'll end this up here. We'll just call this the introduction, and the next one will be the first of the gameplay and lore through, because we already have a lot of items here whose text we can go through and explore a bit about the world that it is presenting to us. So yeah, I can't wait for the next one, and thank you so much for sticking around and watching. How do I pause this? Help! Help!